Well done. Save the day again, Karen.
It's time.
I was saying till 5 o'clock anyway. I was told I wasn't required to be here, but I thought I'd come
For the first half hour.
for the first half an hour.
Right.
Okay.
That is a really good target for us to be
Okay.
Yeah.
to be done in half an hour.
Yeah. I think we can use yours, but there's something.
That's right, that would be good. Yes.
Okay. Are we okay live?
We are.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a meeting of the Finance and Assets Working Group. This is really just a checkpoint. We're checking in terms of progress on the activities we've got underway. But first of all, just checking on apologies. I know Danielle isn't here and she has given her apologies, and the rest of us are here. And we've got any declarations of interest?
No?
No, not. Minutes of the previous meeting. Meeting was held on the 8th of November. You've got draft minutes included with the papers. Everybody okay with those?
Yeah, I've read them and I'm happy with them, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy with those.
Thank you. We've only got one action we're carrying forward at the moment, in that we've got the action relating to any co-optees, so that will remain open as we move along. But at the last meeting we added a further action, which was for Peter to create a first attempt at an assets fact sheet. But because that's on the agenda for today and we're going to have a look at that, I know you shared it, Peter, thank you. We can close our action because it's now within the scope of the work that we're undertaking. Okay? So we're happy to get into the main bulk of the meeting once I find the next item. Apologies. Yes. On the basis there's nobody in the room and nobody's asked to speak, have they?
No.
Okay, so we'll go across that. Okay. So it's just an update on the two work streams. If I could just flip it, Peter, if that's all right, because yours is a meatier bit, and I don't want to have yours done first and the rest of us think actually we can't complete with what we've been up to.
Oh no, that's
Okay, so we'll deal with ours first. So we have started working through the titles and leases. I created a spreadsheet based on a number of questions of what we want to identify from each of those documents that we've got. But obviously the prior question always is, have we got a title, have we got a lease where appropriate? And I think looking broadly across the various assets we've probably got about 40% of the documentation that we would need. So there are some big holes, but it doesn't stop us doing what we're doing, because we are working through some of the documentation and we can populate the spreadsheet and then hopefully assimilate it into your spreadsheet in time, Peter. I don't know if there's any comments from Colin or...
Well, I mean, I'm a bit stuck on some of the properties I'm looking at.
Yeah.
In particular, the car park. I need a plan of the car park to get any information out of the land registry. Does anybody have a plan of the car park?
I have seen one.
Showing, because part is owned by Dover Council and part by us.
I am sure
Is that
I've seen
right?
several copies of the...
Could you see if you could find me one?
Yes.
I'm stuck without it.
Yeah.
The other thing is on Market Street.
Yes.
You've been given a copy of the lease.
Yes.
Could you let me see
Have
that? Because I haven't seen that.
You can have your own copy.
Because that's one of the properties you've asked me to look at.
Yeah, thank you. So the intention hopefully is that three of us will meet again on Monday at some point. If you're able to find something, Karen, that'd be great. What I'd like to do on Monday is just go through the spreadsheet I've got, and then we can sort of fill in some of the gaps. I know thanks for the work that you've been doing, but we've got a lot of plates spinning and I just want to try and get it into one document. But I don't know, Colin, whether you just wanted to quickly touch on how we might sort of address this in a managed manner, shall we say?
Yes, so on Monday the HR committee met for the first time and we talked about the asset officer role, which, as you know, we failed to appoint someone. We had a long discussion about that, and I think the reason we didn't appoint someone, well, there were the circumstances of the actual person who was offered the post, and I think you all know about what happened there. But there was a feeling that the fact that we didn't get many high calibre candidates was because the post was only for 12 months. So what we agreed at HR committee is that we ought to look at this on a long-term basis and a short-term basis. So the long term is to bring that post back to council, full council at some point, and to seek agreement that it be re-advertised on a permanent basis, but that it be partially self-funding, so that the remit of this officer will be to introduce savings in terms of utilities, gas, electric, etc., the way we pay our bills, tariffs, and so on, and also for that person to bring in additional income. So from properties that we have, e.g. Cowleys Meadow, the Guildhall, whether we can increase take up, whether we look at the fees generally, and also unused assets or vacant assets like Fishergate and Boatman's Hill Chapel. Yeah. So as a kind of target, we were looking at maybe half of that salary plus on cost being paid for by savings and additional income, so it becomes partially self-funding. So I think that's a reasonable approach.
I just wanted to say that we do use brokers for our utilities, and we're currently tied into contracts, so
yeah, sure.
that's going to come into play.
Yeah. But one of the one of the people we interviewed for the asset officer role is an expert on utilities, on looking at lighting, gas, tariffs, contracts, sensors, movement sensors, all this kind of thing. And he's had a long track record of making quite significant savings, Pfizer's and other places where he's worked. So what we were proposing, and I think we need to bring this to council, is to say we employ him on a fixed contract, maybe of a week's work, just to come in and give him unrestricted access to this building to start off with, and to make recommendations about how we could make savings. Because I'm often turning off lights here, and clearly there's issues about the gas bills and everything else. But also beyond that is the statutory requirements, the health and safety requirements for electrical checks, gas checks, Legionella, water, all those kind of things. So he can advise on that as well. So that's one element of the job. So yeah, just going back to the long term, we're going to recommend that we make this a permanent appointment, because I think one of the things that's been highlighted for me is that when we went to look at Fishergate and the example of this building and Boatman's Hill, the town council stroke Tollbridge Fund is not great at managing properties. So we need to find someone who can step up and take on that role and be a bit more proactive about making sure that everything's in order.
Yes.
So that's the long term. Yeah, the short term, as I said, this chap is going to make a proposal to do this building to start off with, on a fixed fee basis, which will hopefully more than pay for itself if his recommendations are implemented. And then the other side of the short term issue is that we felt, talking in the assets group, myself, Nick and Emmett, that the priority is this work on the assets is to find someone on a short-term basis, maybe 2-3 months, who can come in and ransack the place, try and find these missing documents, try and put all the pieces of the jigsaw together. So really we're looking at someone who has some kind of legal knowledge or background, perhaps a recent law graduate, someone from an agency, and to be able to pay them on a fixed term contract within the budget that we have for this post. So that's the proposal. and that person would then work directly to this working group on, you know, coming to the meetings, going away, acting under our instructions, going away, looking for documents, coming back, talking to lessees, talking to, for example, grant funding bodies to see if we can get grants, all that kind of thing, on a short-term basis. So I think, you know, if you're happy with that, that's what we're proposing. And what the HR committee suggested we do on the latter point for the legal side of things is to just draw up a brief kind of job description, task list for that freelancer to deal with. So they would come in, they work with Karen and town clerk, and, you know, help you to find stuff, hopefully.
What I would say is they might need to be a historian as well,
Yeah.
because these documents might be in our archives.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I think
I have written to Millie to ask him for a meeting on that, specifically about the cinema. We did think that perhaps some of these missing documents are somewhere in the archive, or
Yes.
I'm sure they are.
Where there might not be a current lease, but there was an original lease, it might be a situation. I've had advice from solicitors before about ongoing commercial leases.
Yes.
And where they're not replaced, they can continue under what
Until.
is known as statutory periodic tenancy,
Yes.
unless it's replaced with a subsequent document. So it might be the case that the original lease for the empire exists, but a subsequent document has never been written.
So we have got one. Yes.
There is one.
Yes. As with other properties as well, but the date of has expired, but that's really good information to provide, Karen. I suppose the issue is that's sort of base camp in terms of have you got a lease that's effective, but then is the lease being adhered to both by the owner and the lessee, and the reality is I think there's a lot of gaps around adherence. But we'll get there. Peter, did you have any comments?
No, you know, I think, you know, it's eminently sound. If you're employing somebody, a job description, don't feel comfortable with that, a scope of services for them to do if they are a freelancer or whatever, with kind of a clear definition of the end point.
Yeah.
You know.
I agree with you. Milestones along the way in terms of deliverables,
and
outcomes stated clearly up front, and measured and managed.
So I think we'll work on that. We can do that. 3 months, and then bring that to.
So I'm happy with that proposal. It obviously needs council approval.
Yeah. It's a sensible way forward, but we have to get the agreement.
That all makes sense.
Okay.
Agreed. Yep.
Thank you. Peter, the floor is yours.
Well, I won't take very long then, because there's not too much, and I know Karen's pressed for time. We've got 15 minutes, which is good. The first thing I would say is that one of the key things that we need to be able to do the review in terms of giving transparency of costs is to have this code of accounts that's going to be used, because what I don't want to do with Danielle is invent a code of accounts to sort the existing accounts and have kind of an automatic spreadsheet that will sort them out into the different ways. So Karen is going to help us with a code of accounts in a few weeks' time when you get some information from the different software providers.
Yeah, I have a little information now, in that I've studied a couple of different town councils' accounts and spoken to the town clerk.
Right.
And it seems to be quite common that income streams start with 1,000 and expenditure streams start with 4,000.
Okay.
So that might be the case when I get a little bit further down the line with these systems, software providers. They might all follow that pattern. So, but I'll know a little bit more in a week or two.
Okay. Well, we'll just hang fire doing anything on that, because in my mind it's a few hours, a week's work to actually do this sorting out.
Yeah.
We obviously want to do it against the live budget for the year that's coming.
Yeah.
I did in the past present as kind of my analysis of the current year's budget and kind of preparing management accounts for that. So we'll hang fire with that. But the other thing I was asked to do, or we were asked to do, was to prepare an asset data sheet.
Yeah.
And we kind of discussed this before because I think it's important that the two streams are joined up, and really the asset data sheet is an opportunity for us to kind of to be on a bit of a kind of a common language.
Yeah.
So you'll see that we've made this into three parts. Really, the first part is the legal part. Well, sorry, I should go back. At the top of the table is a bit of detail about the asset. So for the purposes of just running an example, I've kind of used the drill hall. So I'm kind of saying, what is the name? The asset name is the drill hall, and the description of that, it's a grade 1 listed building, it's the old ATC, and we've got some details as to where that's at. So the intent is that for all of the dozen or more buildings or assets that the council or the Toll Bridge have, we would have an individual sheet. So then there's the legal. So it's either a freehold property, it's a lease property, or it's a rented property. It could be both, could be 2 out of the 3. So it could be a freehold property that is then rented out. And you'll see running across, I've put in kind of a rag, it's a red, amber, green, just so that you can look at it visually and say, have we got the title deeds? And then if we have got the title deeds, we put in a hyperlink so that you can go to wherever on the filing system the title deeds are.
So could I just ask a question of Karen? So when we're as I'm finding physical documents, are we also saving those as digital copies on our server?
We haven't done so far.
No.
No.
I thought that might be the answer, but
I
I think it's a really
I
good
have got
suggestion.
You haven't, but it's a good idea to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not now. This will be
Yeah.
later on.
Yeah.
But if we haven't got it, we could say that we've got them in, this is the file reference and this is the document number within the overall town hall suite. And then again with kind of the legal documents, and I obviously open to comments on this. Have we got the conveyancing data? Because there could be a lot of other things besides the title deeds. Have we got any planning permissions associated with the document, with the asset? Have we got a loan or whatever, and a loan agreement on it? And then for any lease properties, have we got a copy of the lease? Who is the freeholder? What's the terms and key dates to put on? And then if it's a rented property, who's the tenant and what's the rent and the rent review date, just to put that up. So those are just some of the kind of general things, and as I say, I'm open to comments. So if people would like to mark up the sheet and give it back to me, if you've got any comments, then I can make changes.
Peter, I can share with you after the meeting what I've done, which is based on a conversation that we had. So it was driven primarily by an exercise Nick had already done on one of the leases. There's definitely commonality, but equally there's some exceptions on both sides.
Okay, perfect. And then the second block of information is all about the asset. Have we got a condition survey? Have we got a maintenance plan? Have we got an energy survey, an EPC? Is there something about heritage that we need to know about? Have we got any specialist reports? So have we got things like timber and damp or energy or whatever? And then we're into the safety management, the fire inspection, the gas inspection, electrical, the lift, although you mentioned Legionella. Have we got, and then under utilities, what about the insurance? You know, whilst building might be rented out
Yeah.
or leased out, we still would have responsibility as landlords for that. The electricity, who's the supplier, what's the annual cost, so that we've got a feel for it, the gas, the water, council tax, alarms and CCTV, internet provider and so forth. And then the operation and maintenance, have we got the keys, you know, have we done, what are the routine maintenance activities and plans that we would do, what are the major repairs that are planned. And so all of those where we've got cost information, we can put those in as well. But it just gives an overall picture of the asset. And then the financial, what was the acquisition cost, what was the book value, what's the current value.
Okay.
Let's try and get something that, and then if it's, is there some income or rent or annual income coming in? Have we got a capital provision? What is the amount? Is it estimated? What's it for? Who's done the estimate type of thing? And then the spend profile, when do we need to spend the money so we can make budgetary provisions? So all of these, you know, not all of the fields will be applicable to the different types of assets if it's a piece of land, excuse me, or if it's a building. But I obviously feel that this is the wealth of information that the asset officer, you know, would really need. This would be his bread and butter because this is his go-to. And then we can summarise this with the red, amber and green chart, because we can then do a spreadsheet for each, a summary spreadsheet where you could just put where are we falling into disrepair or where.
Well,
and we can put some totals.
One control sheet for all the properties.
All of the assets, so you can look at it and pick out the red bits and say, these are the things we need to look at and how do we prioritise them. So that was the kind of the thought about it, and yes, we can kind of refine it as we wish, but my vision on this is that this is kind of the controlling document, and then all of the information would be behind it on these hyperlinks so that people could find it and we would know when to negotiate utility bills or whatever.
Is this going to be on the website, or are you suggesting that we keep it in our files?
I haven't got, I'm open to advice on that. I think we obviously would want, there's some confidential information on here in terms of the rents.
I don't think it, I think it should be, there is confidential data protection stuff in here. It shouldn't, can't go on the website.
In which case, I'm wondering if it's not on the website, we don't necessarily need the hyperlinks. What we could do is have a series of folders and make sure that all of these
sits within the folders.
With a folder with all the documents listed. Behind them.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm kind of open to all of those kind of suggestions because I'm really not too familiar with what the server is here, and so whether it's folders or whatever, but just kind of listing them all out. Everything can sit in the one folder for the asset, but whether, you know, you can see that we've actually got the gas inspection certificate, which is due on the 4th of April. You know, how that leaks out at us.
Hyperlinks worry me a bit because systems change.
And they get broken.
Move around.
Yeah.
They get broken.
No, I understand. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Okay. Go on.
Yeah, I think this is great. I mean, it's capturing all the information we
I think
need.
it is good.
I think the way I saw it, the mega spreadsheet, if you like, would be a huge document with the property on the left and then reading across. You know, the parties, the terms, the rent, if it's leased, the rental income. So then you can have a total at the bottom if it's all on Excel. But I was thinking the document.
Hello. Can I help you?
Plans confirmed.
Feel free.
The document, would it help if the document was, the assets were ranked? So we start with the ones where we have the strongest title, i.e. freehold, and then, you know, working down to the least 3-year lease, for example.
Yeah, well, I did on my kind of original spreadsheet, I kind of separated all of the properties out
Yeah.
to those which were STC owned, those which were leased and others. So yes, and I think you kind of used that when you were building
Yeah.
that one there. So there's lots of different ways of presenting this information, Colin. And I agree, because that was the way I started off. But when you actually start looking at an individual asset here, there's so much that you need to have.
Yeah.
So what I envisaged was for a worksheet for each of the assets, so the 13 or 14, but then the front summaries, there can be a couple of different summaries set out in different ways, and the information would just bounce forward to the front.
So you could interrogate it and quickly work out what the annual rental income is
Correct, yeah.
from all the assets, and do calculations of if we increased it by 2%.
Yeah. Well, if you can create, obviously you can create an exporting from the individual sheets if we do it in Excel into the master sheet, so you can do all sorts of things.
Well, that's right, because you can add up the income, the annual income, and you can just kind of shoot the additional column going through the 14 spreadsheets.
Could I ask Karen, is there a property ledger anywhere? I mean, given that this council...
We have an asset register for the town council that is audited every year. The toll bridge fund asset register is more difficult to put together, and I don't have a full document.
Is it a big leather?
It's an Excel spreadsheet that I
Okay.
into.
But when you say asset register, do you mean, for example, IT equipment, for example?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's
Everything,
not
not
building
just
space, not property based, it's
Everything.
still at a level detail.
Yeah.
Peter, just going back to the point you made about the website, I think we should agree a version of the information that is meets all of the requirements in terms of GDPR, etc. Because I think we need to be transparent. We've got 20 or so assets which are a mixture of items, and I think we should be clear about that. And also, it's about making sure that people understand the assets we're having to manage. So there will be, I think there's got to be a set that goes on the website. It shouldn't be hidden away, but it won't go to a level that compromises
Yeah.
information.
No, well, I'm very, very comfortable with that, because this is the real complexity of Sandwich Town Council.
Yes.
Because the allotments and the public toilets, when you look at the sign outside our front door and the fishing permits and the visitors' information, is what we're down to do. But the complexity here is immense because of the number of properties that the council owns.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that the residents have visibility of the assets that we own and the complexities of managing them.
Yeah.
And that helps justify why we need a professional asset officer to keep on top of all.
And most residents have no idea what we own.
No,
Yeah.
no, I think it's very important that the bones of this get on the website, so that people know what we've got.
Yeah.
But a lot of this shouldn't go on the website.
Understand. Well, we can set a spreadsheet up within the assets database,
Exactly.
just one sheet which can then be cut and pasted into the web.
Just to add that there is already a properties and land sheet on the website, which is part of the Town Council Code,
Yes.
the Town Council.
Yeah, I've seen that, and if you actually follow the hyperlink that is on there, on the sheet that I've put on, it will take you to it.
Okay, can I thank you, Peter, for the work you've done so far. If I share our spreadsheet, and then as we move on, because the first stage really is about capturing the information, I think we then will come to a point where we'll start looking at how do we present it. There's the linear line, there's the column line, they've both got advantages and disadvantages, but I think what you've done so far is really good.
This is the easy part. The difficult part is populating this. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
And so
It is.
so I'd ask if you've got any comments on
Yeah.
the paper versions, if you just write on them and pass them to me, maybe on Monday night at the council meeting, and then I can make any changes.
Well,
That
we'll
would be
definitely
good.
take
I've
time on that.
I've just got one question I might have asked now
Yeah.
on this. You talk about current value.
Yes.
of the property. Where are you going to get that information?
Well,
Are we proposing that we should get them all valued, or is it just going to be our best estimate of what we think the value is?
well, we can do both. I think there are certain assets. Let's say it's a war memorial. It doesn't matter what it's worth. We're not going to sell it.
No.
But
Exactly.
if there are assets which fit into the potential disposal
Yeah.
categories, well then there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't decide either to employ a surveyor to give us a valuation, or just get an inquiry running with the local estate agents for them to give us a marketing price.
Yeah.
There are specialist valuers out there,
There are,
and the
costs.
local ones
Yes.
may say they can't value
Okay.
this property.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been asked by our insurer to
Yes.
get more recent valuations.
Yes, I'm sure you have, yes.
And the most recent one I did was the Guildhall,
Right.
and that's cost a bit just
Yes.
to get
I
the
bet it
valuation.
is,
So,
actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
all these properties need looking at.
We have talked about this because I think the assets in the Tollbridge Fund accounts appear at historic cost, is that right?
Yes.
And if it's a fund, it should really reflect a true and honest opinion of the value of assets, not the historic value. The current value.
Yeah. So this feels like this will be an action that comes out of this working group that we take to STC to get an agreement for it. It's the next stage activity. We can't wrap, well, we haven't got it within our scope, but I think there's a definite follow-on action for that. Yeah. Okay.
And it's quite an urgent action, actually. It's been urgent for a while.
Well, it may happen then quicker than we want it. So that's right. Okay, thank you, Peter. And could I just check if there's any other business before we close? I'll talk about the next meeting in a minute, if not.
Can I just raise
Yeah.
one thing? I don't know whether, one thing which I think we need to look at, I don't know whether we should be doing it or somebody else, and that is I think that we should produce a register or list of properties which we think should be registered as assets of community value.
Ah, yes.
Now, whether there's something we could look at and produce a recommendation to the council that we think the following buildings do. I mean, I don't want to go into them individually.
No.
The cinema is certainly one which comes
Yeah.
to mind that we should be doing that.
So can I?
Is that something we should look at, or is it something the Finance and General Purposes Committee should look at?
So can I just be clear, is this assets that are owned by the council or the toll bridge, or
No,
assets, it can be any asset
Any
in-
assets
Any assets
any
in the
assets
in the
in the
town?
parish,
That's right.
which we consider are assets of community value.
Yeah.
And the town council is entitled, can nominate these and submit their nomination to Dover Council, who then decide whether to put it on the register.
Yeah.
And I think it is very important.
I agree with you, Nick. Can I suggest that what we do is we log this as an action so we don't lose sight of it,
Yeah.
and we'll come back to this
Yeah.
in a couple of months'
Yeah,
time and
absolutely.
then decide. We don't need to make a
If
decision now.
this is the right,
It may well
because
be.
I think it probably is the
Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
the right working group to discuss that.
I think on top of that, we need to look at the process for listing buildings, because the cinema, as far as I can tell, is not listed.
Okay.
And I think it should be, because that would help to
Yeah.
protect it.
Yes. Possibly. Yeah. Thank you, Colin. Okay, so I was going to suggest in terms of when we next meet, if you agree, we will come back 2 weeks after the next STC, which therefore is 2 weeks before the February STC. I felt that might be the right time to come back, just in case we need to trigger anything February,
Yeah.
maybe even to give an update, and we might need to do that to finance general purpose in any case. So if you're okay with that,
Yeah.
roughly 4 weeks, but I'll come up with the specific dates.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
And if Colin and Nick, if we can meet on Monday before you go away, that would be really helpful. And we'll meet another time before we come back as a group.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, we'll close. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Good.